This is a Solid Signal podcast for the week of December 11th, 2023. If you've been listening to the Solid Signal podcast, you know that I'm not quite sure what I'm going to be doing for the podcast for the last 2 weeks of the year. It's one of those times that a lot of people are taking off and listenership numbers tend to go down. So I might go a little bit zany. I might get a little weird. I don't know quite what I'm going to say. So I figured, okay, this is the last, real podcast of the year. So let's talk about what my hopes are for 2024. Before I get started, I want to point out that this isn't a political podcast. It's not that kind of a thing. And 2024 promises to be a year that's charged with a lot of politics. And I intend to not talk about any of that here on the Solid Signal podcast. That said, I hope more than anything, and I'm sure that you do too, that 2024 shows us a peaceful side, a calm side, a happy side where people are getting along in a fair and just way. And that's all I'm going to say about that. But let's look at where I come from here on the Solid Signal podcast. This is a podcast all about equipment that is technically classified as home theater, whether or not it's been in a business or, whether it's at home. I'm talking about satellite television, satellite internet, cellular stuff, and it should be an interesting year when it comes to that because we're starting to see a real sea change. And I don't mean that in terms of just our marine customers, although our marine customers are seeing a big change too, and I'll get to that in a minute. It seems like for about the last 10 years, we've been talking about the slow demise of pay television and how pay television is on its way out. It's the thing of the future, is the internet, and how, everybody's just going to move over to that, and that's the end of that. And okay, so that's not 100% untrue, and certainly it's been borne out by the drop in subscriber numbers that we have seen all across the pay television industry and the gradual decline in broadcast ratings that we've seen. But it's my intention, it's my feeling, as it were, that we have hit bottom when it comes to that. We may see a little bit more of a drop in this kind of a thing, but I think that realistically what we're looking at is everybody who has pay television wants it. Everybody who wants it maybe doesn't have it yet, but things I think are going to stabilize a little bit. I think that ratings on broadcast television are about as low as they are going to go. And I think that pay television is actually due for a big bounce. Why? Because it's an increasingly good value. Pay television costs have gone up nowhere near as quickly as streaming costs in the last 5 years. And while there are a lot of people out there who are practically banking on the economy getting worse in the coming year, that means that pay television becomes a really, really good option for entertainment. Oh, sure, you're going to have, everybody's going to have internet service, and everybody with internet service is going to probably check out those services like Pluto and Tubi and that sort of thing, and they're going to get a lot of free entertainment there. But there's so much valuable, good stuff on pay television out there. And I think that what we're going to see is people are more and more aware of it. Yes, there's going to be the folks who would never consider traditional pay television, the younger crowd. But I think of those who would consider it, I think that you're going to see that they stay with pay television a little bit longer because it just looks like a much better deal than streaming does right now. There's a fellow who I spar with now and again, and he disagrees with me when it comes to the cost of your average group of streaming apps, which I say is about $100 a month is what you will pay if you look at the top apps out there. And he says, no, it's probably a lot lower than that because we define top apps differently, and there's a lot of back and forth that way. But the bottom line is that 10 years ago, you were paying essentially $0 for the top streaming apps, especially if you had a pay TV subscription. And now you're paying whatever, close to $100. I'll try to be a peacemaker here and have it be something that we can both agree on. And that's not going to go on forever. That's not going to be something that people are going to be willing to pay for. And I get it. Running a streaming operation costs money. And for years and years and years, streaming companies weren't paying attention to profits, only subscriber growth. And now they are. But people just aren't going to want to pay that kind of money unless it's really, really high quality entertainment that's coming on a regular basis, especially for those folks who can cancel on a month-to-month basis if they want to. Thing two that I am really looking forward to in 2024 is something I've been forecasting for about 6-7 years. And I think that we're really right on the cusp of it in 2024. And that's what's called fixed wireless internet. You might have seen these commercials for T-Mobile on television or read some of the stuff that I've written at the Solid Signal blog. But just imagine if you didn't have to pay a different bill for your cell phone compared to the internet for your home. Maybe the one bill would be a little bit higher than it is now, but you're down to one bill instead of paying twice. That's the promise of fixed wireless internet. And fixed wireless internet means putting a big cellular antenna, something maybe about the size of your forearm on your roof and getting the same kind of speed that you're getting now, except for just getting it from a cellular connection. The technology is there, and the only thing that needs to happen is we need to see more of a 5G rollout in the suburbs before this becomes more common. If you've been on the configurators, and what a great word that is, configurator. If you've been on the configurators for T-Mobile and Verizon's and even AT&T's fixed wireless services, you might have found that you do not qualify for them yet. But you probably will in the coming year. And it's something that I urge you to look into. And to not just call the service providers, but call a company like Signal Connect at 888-233-7563, who can help you choose the right service for you, not just, a service that only makes sense in the short term. We can help you figure out what's going to make sense for you long term so that you get the kind of service that you've always gotten from your internet service provider, just in a different way. I know that I've been talking about fixed wireless for a number of years, and every year I say, this is going to be the year of fixed wireless. And so I'm going to say in 2024, this is going to be the year of fixed wireless. And maybe one of these years I'll be right. And I think it really will be this coming year because it's all finally falling into place. The last thing that I want to talk about for a big coming trend in 2024 is everybody, I think, from top to bottom is going to be looking at what they pay and making sure they get what they pay for. Because it's not enough all the time just to have the newest and flashiest service. It has to make sense for you. And it has to make sense in a way where you're paying as little as possible. I think, for a long time we kind of got away from the idea of bundling where, you would just pay one bill and you get all your services from one place, because a lot of us found that it was easier to kind of comparison shop and cherry pick and get the things that you needed from different places at different times. So, okay, I think that the pendulum is swinging back, because I think we're going to see in the coming year some really innovative bundles. I mean, I heard that Netflix is talking about bundling with Paramount Plus, which is an interesting and odd kind of pairing. But I think that we're going to start seeing bundles that make a lot more sense, where you're going to pay one company for your internet, for your pay television, for your cellular, and for other services you might need, like smart home considerations and access control and wiring, and where you're going to realize not only great success and cost savings, but you're also going to find a certain peace of mind, not knowing that you need to pay 10 different bills and talk to 10 different call centers if you need something. That's my hope anyway. At any rate, these are the feelings that I've got for 2024. I'd love to hear from you. Like, subscribe, and leave a comment anywhere you get this podcast. It makes me look good to my bosses. And I really want to hear what you think the trends for 2024 and beyond are, because, we're in a really interesting transitional phase in this world in a lot of ways. And I think that we can either move forward or we can move backward. And I mean that in a very generic and general sense. But what we choose to do in the coming year is really going to have an interesting impact on the future. That's about it for the Solid Signal podcast. I look forward to everyone having a great rest of the year, whatever holiday you choose to celebrate this time of year, or no holiday at all. I hope that it's a happy one for you. And I will see you again with something, I'm not quite sure what, next week.